Okay, here we are with itsportsmag.com. It's Sports Mag TV with Ira Kaufman. And we're doing an interview with Leo Haggerty and Rob Creed. Leo, take it away. We're going to have a real good, compelling show tonight.
Absolutely. And Ira, we're going to rotate every other one. So I'll start off, being that I've known you the longest, which I don't know if is a blessing or a curse. But tell everyone how in the heck you ended up in Tampa Bay.
Well, Haggerty, I'm not answering any questions till I get my vaccine shot. Where the heck is my vaccine shot, Haggerty? What's going on over here? Don't you have any pull?
You got to be 65.
I'm 66, wise guy. Now, how did I end up in Tampa? All right, true story. I'm working for United Press International. I started in 76 as a clerk. They made me a sports writer in 78. 79, I'm covering the New York Giants. First year coach, Ray Perkins. Rookie quarterback, Phil Simms, 1979. Well, now it's the 1984 season and 83 season, and it ends with a Super Bowl in Tampa. I believe it was the first Super Bowl in Tampa. Redskins, Raiders, the famous Marcus Allen 75-yard run game. Well, I went to the Super Bowl every year for UPI, and when it was in a good city like New Orleans or Tampa, my wife said, I want to go, so we'd both go, and we'd build a vacation around it. If it was in Minnesota or something, she says, you can go. You can go.
Not happening.
So this year it's in Tampa, and we didn't know much about Tampa. So back then, the NFL let you take out a loaner car. All you got to do is sign your name on a sheet, and they give you a car. Well, it's Saturday night, the night before the game. And we went out, we're looking at a map. We say, oh, look at this, Gulf Boulevard. Looks like they got the beaches all up and down Gulf Boulevard. Well, we were staying at the Hyatt in downtown Tampa. I get in the car and start going over to Courtney Campbell. True story. I go 3 miles. I ran out of gas. The guy who left the car before I got it never filled it up, never put anything in it. And I didn't check it. So we're stranded on the Courtney Campbell, strange town, Saturday night. About 10 minutes later, a guy comes by in a pickup truck. What's the problem? Got no gas. He goes, well, it's about an 8-mile causeway. When we get over there, there's a convenience store. I'll get some gas, and then I'll bring you back to the car. I go, wait a minute. We ain't in Brooklyn anymore. I turned to my wife. We ain't in Jersey anymore. Can you believe this? So he did it, and I wanted to give him some money. The guy wouldn't even take my 50 cents, and so off he went. And then we're flying back to Jersey a couple of days later, and we say, boy, it's kind of nice in Tampa. We might want to live there. And so I tried all during the year in 1984 to try to get a transfer to Tampa. Couldn't do it. Finally, the sports editor said, I was going to leave UPI. And he goes, how can we keep you? I said, transfer me to Tampa. And there was only one sports writer in the whole state of Florida. It was a guy based out of Miami. One sports writer for the whole state. And so I wrote up this proposal about golf tournaments I can cover and the Bucks and spring training. And they sent me down here. So I arrived January 1985. What happens? Leroy Selman retires. John McKay retires. And I get Lehman Bennett 2-14 and 2-14. Thank you very much, Mr. Bennett, for welcoming me to the Bay Area.
Well, Ira, we're really glad to have you. And I'll tell you, I'm a Brooklyn guy as well. I'm born and raised there, and I'm a transplant. But you'll never find kinder people than you do here in Tampa Bay. And I think your anecdote really hits that. But in your time here, how did you become the Pro Football Hall of Fame voter for Tampa Bay?
Well, I was with UPI until 1990, and I sort of writing on the wall. It was going out of business, basically. And our office was in the Tampa Trib building, right next to AP, Fred Goodall, and right next to the sports department. I got to know everybody in the sports department. Paul Smith was the sports editor. Nick Puglisi was covering the Bucks back then. And Paul Smith said, I think I can get you on staff in 1990, and he did. And so I was there and covering the Bucks, starting about 2001. And then in 2005, Tom McEwen was the Hall of Fame representative. And, he was kind of heading towards retirement, and you got to be in the Super Bowl city. And McEwen wasn't going to travel to the Super Bowl city. And he didn't want to lose that spot for the Tribune. That's classic McEwen, being very loyal to his Tribune readers. And he asked me to do it. I was very happy because it's a prestigious position. And McEwen talked me up in front of the Hall Board of Trustees. And next thing you know, in 2005, I'm in the room with 48 other NFL writers.
Hey, that's great. Hey, Ira, take a minute to tell our viewers how the Hall of Fame determines who will be the presenter for the prospective candidate for enshrinement.
Jeff, the rules say that the city that the player played the predominant part of his career in is the city whose representative will make the presentation for that Hall of Famer. For example, John Lynch, 11 years in Tampa, 4 years, 4 distinguished years with the Denver Broncos after the Bucs gave up on him with the neck injury. Well, I'm the guy in Tampa, and John Lynch is a Buccaneer above all, so I make the case. Tony Dungy, it was interesting. 6 years in Tampa, didn't win a Super Bowl, and then 7 years with the Colts. But he turned around the Bucs, and I think he did his best work in Tampa. So I got to present Dungy. Now, having said that, Jeff, this year I'm leaning on the Denver guy. His name's Jeff Legwold, works for ESPN, and he's gonna augment my presentation talking about the years that John Lynch spent in Denver. And you'd say, well, wait a minute, Lynch has been in that room 8 straight years. You're finally hearing from Jeff Legwold? Well, Jeff, last year, the Denver Broncos were pushing Steve Atwater, and he was a competitor for John Lynch. So when I talked to Legwold a year ago saying, hey, I'm hoping you can talk up Lynch's year in Denver, he was honest. He goes, Ira, you can't expect too much help out of me. The Broncos are all in on Atwater, and I don't blame him. Atwater's a Bronco. Lynch is a Buck. That's the way we look at it. So I didn't get much from Legwold last year, but this year he's all in because somehow, some way, guys, Atwater got ahead of Lynch, I guess because of All Decade. He won 2 Super Bowls. Whatever reason, he's out of the way, and it's full court press for John Lynch.
Ira, how many other individuals have you personally presented that were elected to the Hall of Fame?
Well, Lee, I got on the board in 05. I asked McEwen a week later, hey, I'm going to Detroit for the first meeting. You got any advice? He goes, yeah, I got advice. Keep your mouth shut, Kaufman. Keep your mouth shut. He goes, you're a rookie, and you're in there with the Sharks. So at least for the first year, keep your mouth shut. Now, look, you guys know me. Anybody from Brooklyn, you tell them to be quiet, that's a problem. But I did it because it was McEwen. So my turn didn't come up in the room. I weighed in on some guys, over the years. But I had always been talking up Ed Sable. And I was talking to my guys, hey, how come Ed Sable's name never comes up in the room? Well, finally, in 2011, he did come up in the room as a finalist. Now, although he's affiliated with the city of Philadelphia, he's not a player that played in a certain city. So it could have been anybody that presented him. And the board knew that I was always an Ed Sable fan, so they asked me to do it. And guys, it was my first presentation, which is nervous enough. Sure. The guy was 95 years old. He had 1 shot. He wasn't coming back a second year. That's enough pressure right there. And it's not like I knew Ed Sable, but I knew all about NFL films, just like Leo does. And I knew the impact it made on the NFL. So I made that presentation. And that was the first one. Sapp came along 2 years later, Brooks in 2014, and Dungy. So and now Lynch. I've made 5 presentations to the Hall of Fame. 5.
Ira, how about any presentations that you made that they weren't enshrined, and how did that go?
Well, I'm 4 out of 5, and of course the one a stickler. And Sal Palantonio used to call me the closer. And I love that. He goes, Ira, you're the closer. You're the best guy doing this. You should do all 15 presentations. That's what Sal said in front of everybody. And they all agreed with him. Nobody disagreed.
Of everyone you presented, who are you particularly proud of?
Ed Sable. Ed Sable, Jeff. I'll tell you why. I never met the guy. I had never met the guy. 95 years old, you know, the emotion. And I went in there. I gave it my best shot. Luckily, he got in as he deserved to. And quick story, the next day, I believe the Super Bowl was in Jerry's World that had just opened a year earlier in Arlington. And I get off the elevator for the game. You know, it's 3:00. The game starts about 6:30. And I get off the elevator and I see Steve Sable, you know, about 100 feet away from me. I never met him. And he was talking to a guy. And the guy that he's talking to points to me like he's saying, hey, that's the guy that made the presentation for your father. And Sable comes running over to me. I still had my work bag in my hand. He gave me the biggest hug you can imagine. He goes, Ira, you have no idea what this means to my father. And he was crying. He was crying on my shoulder. And then I got to say this, guys. 2 years later, Warren Sapp was crying on my shoulder. And that's a far cry from when Sapp was trying to take my head off. And my wife used to tell me during the week going to Buck locker rooms, stay away from that guy. He might deck you. And I told her, honey, if he decks me, it's a lawsuit. I won't mind. And so, you know, this Hall of Fame thing, man, I'm telling you, it's been one of the great experiences of my career.
Ira, you come to Tampa, 2-14, 2-14. You and I were in San Diego for the Bucks, winning their one and only Super Bowl. Did you ever think that would happen after the years of futility that we experienced here in Tampa?
You know, Leo, as good as that Buck defense was, and, you know, the 99 defense was fabulous. I mean, like a notch below the 2002. But, you know, that's the year with you gave up 11 points to the greatest show on turf. But I never thought they had enough offense, Leo. I never thought it was going to happen. I knew Gruden was a pretty good coach. Hey, you know, he did a nice job with the Raiders. He did a nice job. He probably should have won that Tuck Rule game and beaten Brady in that game. That was the last game he ever coached for the Raiders. And but I didn't know he could get the Bucks over the hump, Leo. And the Eagles had Tampa Bay's number. And I figured to get through the NFC, you got to go through Philadelphia. So I didn't think it was going to happen.
Ira, you see anything that looks with the 2020 team? How does it look in comparison to that 2002 team?
I think it's like looking in a funhouse mirror. I think it's the exact opposite because, guys, the defense, it's not terrible. I mean, I go on with Mad Dog Chris Russo every week. Every week he's telling me that's a terrible Tampa Bay defense. I said, Chris, it's not terrible. It's okay. It's okay. And, you know, is it as good as New Orleans defense? Probably not.
No.
Pittsburgh's defense for most of the year? Probably not. Chicago, maybe. Washington. But it's okay. But it's not a historic defense like the 2002 Bucks. But having said that, this is one hell of an offense. And it is on a major roll. And Cam Jordan and Lattimore, you better strap your helmets on because Brady is getting protection. And I think all three of you guys would agree. If Brady's got time, he will carve you up. So I think the Bucks have a puncher's chance, but it is not like the 2002 team. It's quite the opposite.
Wow.
Funhouse mirror, that's a great analogy, my friend. I like it.
Hey, you make no bones about growing up being a Kansas City Chiefs fan. How nice would it be after 50 years to see the KC team host another silver-coveted Vince Lombardi trophy?
I think it'd be fantastic, especially if they're coming into Ray J to play the Bucks on February 7th. You know, some Buck fans are on my case. Hey, how can you be a Chiefs fan? What are you doing? Well, Jeff, I think I've earned it. I mean, they won Super Bowl IV, and then 50 years, they did basically nothing. 5 decades of football, basically zilch. So I think I paid my dues. And, it didn't look good last year with 8 minutes left. They're down 10 points to a heck of a defense with the 49ers. But here comes Patrick Mahomes. They got a good shot this year. I think Cleveland, I think I'd be a lot more worried if it was Baltimore rather than Cleveland. I think Baltimore would be more of a threat. But, then you might have to go to Buffalo. Not Buffalo has to come to KC. But, I think they got a good chance. And I would love it if they would play the Bucs February 7th.
Ira, what's the best Hall of Fame debate story you can tell our viewers? Now, I know, what happens in the room stays in the room, but can you give us one?
I'm going to give you one, Leo. And, I got to be careful. Can't quote anybody. Don't mention anybody by name. I understand that because they monitor this stuff, Leo. They're probably watching this show right now, the Hall of Fame trustees. But I'll say this. The most heated debate in that room, and I've done it for 15 years, Terrell Owens. He came in there. A lot of people thought he's a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer. And you know what? By the numbers, he probably is. I rank him below Randy Moss, certainly behind Jerry Rice, but a notch below Randy Moss. That's high cotton, Leo. That's high cotton. But when we got in that room, the stories started to come out about Terrell Owens and how teams could not wait to dump him. So that set up a real issue with the voters because judging strictly by the words of the rules, it's what the guy does between the white lines. But some of us, and I'm going to include myself, and you may not agree, Leo, I think that extends to the locker room. It extends to the locker room and what kind of teammate you are. It doesn't extend to Warren Sapp not signing an autograph for a 5-year-old. That's totally different. That's non-football. And people brought that up. Well, you got Sapp and, he's in the hall. He's got a bust. And what kind of guy was Warren Sapp? That's apples and oranges, Leo. Nobody ever said Sapp was a bad teammate. Nobody. And Owens, especially in Philadelphia, ripping his own quarterback, quitting on the team in the middle of the season because he didn't like his contract. To me, that's all part of the Terrell Owens story. So in that room, Leo, for those first 2 years, the Owens supporters and the Owens naysayers, they went at it. And I mean, for 45 minutes, they went at it. It was a sight to behold.
Leo, you up next?
No, it's you, Rob.
Hey, Ira, tell us about a story about how NFL films were stunting your social life growing up. I mean, I was playing stickball in the streets of Brooklyn. What were you doing?
I was kind of proud of that because I needed a nice wrinkle. I needed something to get Ed Sable over the finish line. I had great quotes from John Madden, what's the NFL without its history? You wouldn't have any history without the NFL films. I had all that. But I wanted to make it personal. So what I did was look around the room, 47 people, and I said, I got every reason not to put Ed Sable in the hall because he stunted my social life when I was growing up in Brooklyn. Everybody said, whoa, what are you talking about? I said, picture this scene. I'm 16 years old. I'm supposed to be going out with Muriel Berkowitz at a dance. Muriel Berkowitz. I made her name up. There is no Muriel Berkowitz, but I thought it fit. And I said, it's a Saturday night in 1970. And instead of going out with Muriel Berkowitz, I'm watching the game of the week between the Cowboys and the Redskins. That's what I'm doing. And it was on a station in New York every Saturday night, game of the week. And then they used to do the whole week in review. And that's the only time you could get any clips of these games. Believe me, until Monday Night Football came around. And then you got 3 minutes with Cosell. That was it. You didn't have the internet. So instead of going out, I'm watching NFL films. And they set me back about 3 years, gentlemen, until I finally said, that's it with Roger Staubach. I'm going out with Muriel Berkowitz.
Unbelievable.
Muriel Berkowitz was my third grade teacher at PS 115.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, Ira, as a reporter, not a cheerleader for the team, our job is to disseminate what we give educated opinion, and that can sometimes get you in trouble with some people over the years. I know some people accuse me of saying, "What game did you watch, Fox?" Because I critique in private and praise in public sometimes. I know Leo had some challenges with Gruden. Did you ever have anyone who didn't appreciate your commentary?
Well, I
Or
would have thought it.
opinion?
I had two stints with Ray Perkins. I had him in the Meadowlands, and then I had him in Tampa. And people, look at Perkins as this ornery sort. So you would think it would be Ray Perkins, but we actually got along well. Rick Odioso, who was the PR man for the Bucks in the 80s, he told me, "Ira, you might be the only guy in the Tampa Bay media that Perkins has any respect for." That was a nice compliment. The guy that I think I would name would be Dirk Cutter. Whereas in that first year, it was a very good year for Dirk Cutter, 9-7, and they finished strong, and all the stories were positive. And I picked them to win 10 games in 2017, and they ended up going 5-11. And then those last 2 years, 5-11, 5-11, and I was writing all these John Gruden rumors that he was coming back to the NFL, and it could be with the Bucks. And he didn't like that, with the implication that the Glazers might be interested in rehiring John Gruden and recapturing past glory. And then, towards the end of the year, I wrote the column that I felt I had to write. They need to move on from Dirk Cutter. I also wrote it about Jason Light, 2 separate columns. I think the Light one was tougher because nobody knew if Light was coming back, and people kind of knew Cutter was going to leave. But when I finished that column and he read it the next day, and then I got to sit in the front row and face Dirk Cutter, that's a little bit uncomfortable. But Jeff, as you said, you got to do what you got to do in this business.
Well, you think they have thick skin, but they don't. Believe me, it bothers them. But,
and Leo, half the time they say they don't read the clips. Believe me, they read every word that we write, every word.
And they listen to everything we say. And I was living proof of that. Ira, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this question, because I asked our good friend Roy Cummings, who was your colleague for years at the Trib, this same question. From a purely sports standpoint, I think the wrong paper was shut down. What's your thoughts?
Well, Leo, I can't be considered unbiased, and I understand that. But I got to say, Leo, in terms of pro football, with me and Roy, with our contacts in the organization, including the Glazers on occasion, we're the only ones that could talk to them. On the college scene, we were dynamic. We had some great reporters, Mick Elliott, Alfonso. We had strong people. And, Henderson, Martin Fennelly is the columnist. I just thought we were a heck of a sports section, Leo, but the business. And when a venture capitalist takes over, they're interested in one thing, turning a profit. And they told us they were in for the long haul, and it didn't work out that way. And Leo, at the age of 62, on March 2nd, I had a job. And on May 2nd, on May 3rd, I was on the street. And that was sobering. Can't even get Social Security or whatever, no Medicare. And I've kind of reinvented myself, Mr. Haggerty. And that's what sometimes you have to do. But I'm with you. And now, Leo, what do we see? We see the Tampa Bay Times having all kinds of financial issues. It's an industry-wide problem. It's not going to get any better, Leo.
No, it's not.
That was some amazing sports section when you guys were with the Tribune. I will say that. Not to take away any of the work that's been doing at the Times. But Ira, hey, anything you have on 1 or 2 items on your bucket list?
I'll give you 2, my friend. 1, I would love to go to a Grand Slam tennis tournament. I don't care if it's Paris, London, Australia, or even the U.S. Open. But that would be 4th because, you and I grew up in New York, and it's not the same as going to Roland Garros. but I would love to do that. Now, I've checked out some of the prices for these package tours. I mean, it's outrageous. It's outrageous. You know, you're there for 4 days. It's like 10 grand. I mean, come on. Number two, guys, number two, and I think it's more practical, although I'm starting to believe it'll never happen. All I want to do on the sports scene is be decent in golf. Decent. I'm not asking to shoot a 75. I'm not asking to be a scratch golfer. Can you get me to 90? Can you get me to 90? Because I can see I'm in trouble all the time on a golf course. I got no confidence. When I hit one bad ball, it's all over for about 20 minutes. It's over. And then I stand over the ball for too long and I get the negative thoughts. All I want to do is shoot a 90, gentlemen, and I think I could easily see why these people get obsessed with the game of golf if you're decent at it, but not in trouble all the time.
There's not a lot
Jeff,
of golfing that
before
goes
you-
on in Brooklyn, sir. And I mean,
Yeah.
in my name, I'm Rob, and you can't spell Rob without OB. Out of bounds.
Okay,
And
so
I'm famous
Jeff.
for the foot wedge. Leo, I got a
Yeah.
foot wedge that's nobody's business, baby.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff, before you ask the last question, I got to tell Ira this. I got a hole-in-one 2 weeks ago at Crescent Oaks over in Palm Harbor.
Wait a
And-
minute. That's got to be a miniature golf course you're talking about. Haggerty.
No. Hey, it didn't get stuck in the windmill, and the clown's mouth didn't get it. Par 3, third hole, 117 yards, hole-in-one. You've got to tell the story about how you killed the bird with your drive.
Well, all right. I'm going to give you the short version, but I think it happened at the Tampa Bay Golf and Country Club, which is right along I-75 and 54. And so me and Roy were playing, and you know, I was hitting some lousy drives, and Roy says, "You're picking your head up, Ira. You're picking your head up. Keep that head focused and down and swing through it, and you'll do much better." All right. So we get to the 10th tee, and it's kind of where the driving range is. And the instructor was there giving some lessons over there. And I step up to the 10th tee. Roy's on the side of me. And Leo, from the time I approached the tee box, I had my head down on the tee and the ball. That's all I cared about. And I swung. And gentlemen, I hit a low screamer that might have been the best tee shot I've ever hit. And before it started soaring, I hit a sand crane right in the throat.
Wow.
Right in the throat, because I didn't see it because my head was down. And it started crossing and I didn't see it. And it went down in a heap. And I felt terrible. I was in a panic. And I ran over to it and I tried to stand it up. It collapsed like a house of cards, like the Buck defense in 2018. It collapsed. And Roy goes, "Ira, I've never seen anything like that on a golf course." And the more I thought about it, gentlemen, I came up with this line. I'm not proud of it, but I said it to Cummings. "Roy, that sand crane cost me 50 yards off the tee."
Oh
50
my
yards.
God. Okay.
That's all you need to know about me as a golfer, gentlemen.
All right, Ira Kaufman, the Birdman. When people talk about Ira Kaufman, I personally think you already have a legacy. How do you want to be remembered?
That previous story.
I'll say this, guys. I'm gonna make it really personal and not talk about my fellow scribes. I'm gonna just say in general, and I'm being very sincere about this. I want to be known as somebody that when you see the guy approaching down the street and he doesn't even see you, so you can get out of it. You can go another direction and you won't hurt his feelings. But when you saw Ira Kaufman walking down the street, you walked towards him and your face brightened up because he was somebody you wanted to see. You wanted to have a good time. You wanted to have a conversation. He's not anybody you wanted to avoid. He wasn't a downer. He was somebody that just made your day a little bit better. That's a good enough legacy for me, gentlemen.
Wow, that's really
Ira,
good.
That's tremendous. Ira, I just want to say that I always enjoyed being in the press box, and when something happened, you'd walk over and you just went, "Coach, what just happened? We'd have a good time. We'd have a good time with that. On behalf of Jeff and behalf of Rob, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day. And again, we used to do this once a year before the pandemic. So it's good to see your face again.
Leo, I started this morning at 10:30 doing interviews. Orlando. I did one with Cincinnati. Ken Brew. He used to be a broadcaster in I think maybe ABC, and now he's in Cincinnati. So he wanted me to weigh in on the Bucks. I did Chris Russo at 5:00. It's been a busy day, but gentlemen, when I saw the questions that you guys were going to ask, I thought, what am I trying to do? Get a job with the Secret Service? I've never seen anything this this extraordinary. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Pleasure.
Ira, it's very obvious that you have a huge passion for your craft. Keep it up. I tell you, you can't phony that. So, I mean,
thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy.
I wish you could be able to package that. Great interview.
Ira, let's do lunch with all of us when this finally passes. All right.
Burns on you, gentlemen. Burns on you. Absolutely.
Hey, the dessert room.
Take care, guys.
Take care. It's Sports Magazine. Come back and see us again. We love you.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.